Thank you, everybody, and that was amazing. I've seen that film a few times, but it, never ceases to blow me away. So, and thank you all for filling the stage. This is awesome. I love this. So, I got to stand this time. So we have a mic there, and then we have a wireless mic over there. Yep. So we can pass those around as questions come to everybody. And again, there's mics up here, so please, anybody feel free to come up and ask questions. So I think just to get started, I know we kind of introduced almost everybody, but if you could, just go back through and introduce yourself and just talk about your role in the film.
I'll start real quick because I just want to say really quickly, I've been here for the last 2 days watching films from other filmmakers, and I'm completely inspired by these Appalachian filmmakers, specifically those of you in West Virginia. I am so damn proud of you. Mountain Craft, the Robinson Grand, the Bridgeport-Clarksburg area, thank you for upholding this art. We have to hold tight to it. We're in a renaissance, West Virginia. Let's go. My name is Clara Lehman. I'm the director of this film, also produced and I wrote, and then with this guy.
And I'm Jonathan Lecoq, director, producer, and then I was the cinematographer and editor with Chris Parkhurst.
I'm Nellie Rose, and I'm one of the 3 subjects of this film, and I'm a textile artist and clothing maker.
I'm Tim Hibbs. I played the role of the confused blacksmith. And these are my kids. This is Eliza, the one with the golden voice.
Yay.
And this is Ava, the one with the brilliant mind and pencil.
James Morley, child of God.
James Riggs, I'm James Morley's husband.
So I'll just start with a question. Where did the theme of the pioneer come from?
So I think over the last 10 years or so, our nation and maybe the world is going through a lot. We're struggling, right? We're going through a lot of reckoning. We're trying to define how we can make up for wrongs we've committed to other humans, to our planet. And so what that did to me was make me also reflect on that as well. And in an insular way, I remembered it one night. My grandmother used to recite the poem, "Oh Pioneers, Oh Pioneers." She was a 1917 baby, so that means she was probably in love with it, and she was an adventurer and inspired by travel and that pioneer spirit. And when I looked at the poem more carefully, I realized the extractive qualities in the poem, the ways that it was wielding humans in a way that maybe wasn't quite right and maybe abusive to all of us. And I wanted to explore how we could redefine that through maybe what you may think are an average person, but they are amazing and valuable and important. And so Jonathan and I were like, hey, what can we do and how can we celebrate West Virginians? And we just chose people that we love, and that's these folks.
Yeah, I'll just say that when Clara, because Clara it was like 2 a.m. or something, and she had this like strike of an idea, and when she told me about it, I was very excited about this, the intent behind, enriching each other's lives with each other, championing the pioneer within yourself and those around you. And also, I think we were at a time when we weren't, kind of like Nellie says, like able to touch and be together as much. And so it was at the beginning of the pandemic when the idea came, but we were already feeling this desire to connect. And I think that, touched me, and I wanted to go for it.
I love it. So kind of a piggyback on that, during production, and this is kind of for everybody, did your thought process of what a pioneer was change as you made the film?
No.
Good.
But I'll answer it more fully for you.
Totally fine.
I'm going to tell you one secret about this film is, and I'm not going to say the name, but there's someone that told me once that they felt that these folks weren't pioneers. And I got real mad, and I said, I'm going to prove you wrong. And so I hope we've done it, right? So what we did is we framed it very carefully and elegantly, and this took forever. We had to edit our butts off and do a lot of very careful writing and still respect these human stories and not manipulate them in a way that felt false or uncomfortable for any of them. And I don't know if I've done that. They can tell us if we have. But what we carefully did was frame it with Kaya Cater's narration, and then created these nice acts to demonstrate that they very much are pioneers.
I would just quickly say that it changed a little bit for me in the sense that we had the expectation or desire, but I mean, they kind of showed it more than I even imagined, and I feel like we sometimes say, I don't know if we were a curse or a blessing or a mixture, but like so much happened in their lives in the small amount of time we spent with them that it was amazing to see it kind of unfolding as we were working on this thing that we had no idea, we didn't know if we were going to fall flat on our face or, like have to stop or, if it was going to work out. So we really felt, again, enriched by the relationships we formed with everybody, and I will say we felt very lucky, because we knew everybody to some degree, but it was still, we had that mystery. Like you meet somebody real cool, you're like, man, she's cool. Like I kind of want to hang out with her. Is that okay? Is that normal? And so we were like, these are people we admire or have that like mysterious desire to spend time with, and so used it as an excuse to do that. So thank you for letting us do that. But I would love to hear from you all, because I feel like we put you all in a really awkward position, like, hey, we're making this film and we think you're pioneers, and none of you're all super humble people. And so I would just love to hear how you all dealt with navigating that awkwardness in some ways and how you were willing to allow us to totally be flies on the wall and a pain in the butt.
Well, my perspective was it was an adventure every time we got together. It was an adventure because you never knew. I did not know, well, first of all, the creative, artistic, like in the woods with the window panes. What a beautiful sanctuary. And who else could have created that? It was an adventure.
I was definitely one of those humans who, when you asked me to do this, I was like, what? Me? I'm no pioneer. What you talking about? And then I think, this is my third time seeing this film. And I think you've proved me wrong. And I think that's really cool. And I say that because I think that Claire and Jonathan have successfully redefined and changed my understanding of what a pioneer is. So I was first judging this by the understanding of what a pioneer, like the understanding that the definition, the previous definition that is now rewritten. And I love this redefining because it opens it up to everyone. It definitely, every single person that showed their lives in this film, and the way that you captured it and wove our stories together, it shows that a pioneer isn't a singular human. A pioneer is a mycelium network of support and community. So that's what it showed me. And so thank you.
Well, like Nellie just pretty much took what I was going to say. No, I probably didn't have much of an idea I didn't really even know I just knew I was going to be a part of it, but I wasn't sure what it was going to even be about until the first time I saw it. But I was like Nellie, I was kind of like, I'm not really sure if I fit the criteria here of being a pioneer. And then it really took seeing the movie, not really so much even going through the process, because I really didn't know what the end result was going to be until I saw it. But after seeing how they put it all together and thinking about what my concept of what a pioneer was before seeing this, yeah, I would definitely agree with what Nellie said. I mean, we're all kind of pioneers in a sense, and it's definitely a community effort, and it's out there blazing the trail, no matter what that trail might be or might lead to. It takes those people to go out and clear the path and get everybody behind them, I guess. So it's pretty cool to be a part of that, to be described as one of those types. I'm honored, so thank you.
So I want to say, as a documentary filmmaker, I know, especially doing observational verite, it is so hard to know when to stop filming. And I could sense that with the ending. I was like, oh, I wondered if they kept filming or if they really knew. So I wanted to hear your thoughts on, when did you know to stop? Or when did you know, this is my third act, this is when we're coming down the roller coaster and we're getting that resolution?
Yeah, Jonathan and I have made a few films together, and the editing, writing, and directing process for us is kind of fluid and seamless, and we bang our heads against the wall together for a long time and get mad, and then we're happy, and then we're sad again. And that's part of art. And the process for finding the thread and how to weave this was arduous, but what we did was, first of all, we edited together their individual stories and left that singular. And then we went back and tried to bring them back together as one story and tried to define those acts with okay, the beginning is a celebration of who this person is and introducing you to them and their craft and their art and their ability to move us. Then, there's some hardship and then conclusion. So that took time, and what we found when we were doing that is we needed our narrator. And I had written tons of this content, but was not in the film. I couldn't say it. I'm not, we can't place it on the screen. And so that's when Kaya came in. And Jonathan can speak a little more to the edit process as well. And maybe how.
I think, again, each of these amazing people went through so much, and I feel like after they each had this sort of huge event in their lives, we felt, okay, let's see how this is going to go. Let's see where this takes us. And what I will say is, we stopped after we felt we had some sort of conclusive quality, after each of them had the big hardship, let's say. Not that there was just one, but what I will say is that we could have kept filming with each of them, they've gone on to continue to do amazing things that could be in the movie. So yeah, I think that in some ways I feel each of them also deserve their own film. So we did struggle with that a lot. Like Clara said, we had 3 different feature films with each of them. But that then helped us find these, each of them talks about objects, in the beginning portion of the film. And that was accidental. That wasn't, yes, they guided us in some of their preferences and desires and experiences, but through taking each of their films and starting to weave them together, it became this sort of tapestry that opened it up more to everybody, rather than, oh, this is just a story about one person. It's now a story about all of us. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So another question that I had, Clara, I know female representation is a huge thing. You talk about it a lot. So talk to us. There was a lot of amazing, portions of that in this film. So talk about that from your perspective, and yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. I didn't have a lot of confidence as a young woman filmmaker in the beginning, and I want to just give props to this man right here because, and I'm not saying that every good woman has to have a good man or anything like that. I'm just saying that we have to really be intentional and lift voices, whether it's people of color, women, communities that aren't represented, or religions that aren't getting heard. We have to make sure that we support them. And I feel supported by this guy every day, and he has boosted my confidence as a filmmaker a lot. So I love you. And I think that what we tried really hard to do in this film is demonstrate that everyone has power, and women do too, and that West Virginians specifically, we are valuable and powerful. And I wanted to be able to reflect that across all genders, hopefully.
What a deeply imaginative and beautiful film. Thank you, all of you on stage, for bringing this to life. I had a question about some of the symbolism that is associated with each character. There's such striking imagery, and it's such a unique mix of verite and then these really sort of stylized, production-designed sequences, and then on top of that, these animated sequences. And so at what point in the filmmaking did you decide on the symbolism that you wanted for each character, and how did that inform like the timing of how each of those three elements fell into place?
Yeah, what a great question. Thank you, Scott. I think early on, so Clara came up with this idea, it was February, and we're like, oh man, let's go. And then March hit, and we're like, wait a minute, maybe not, you know? But what it did was, the pandemic created this sandbox that we had to work within, so we had to be imaginative or try to find ways to express each of their stories without being able to film in the hospital or to be with each other like this close as easily. We wanted to also respect everybody, and be safe and be careful. But early on, we sent audio recorders, and as we started listening to the audio recorders, the content, these little windows kind of came in. And, for example, James talks about after working, he goes and he looks out the window and the trees and nature. And so for James, that became a huge symbol for him. And it continued to come up as we discussed. So it really was more shown to us, it wasn't something that we created. But we thought, how beautiful would it be? We can't necessarily get a congregation together and go to church. Let's take it to the woods so James can give a sermon to the trees that are doing so much for him, And Nellie, of course, there's so much tactility to what she does. And so being able to see her do her work allowed for us to kind of grab hold of that and sort of thread it throughout. And then with James, there's even more so. There's a ton of tactility. But there's that story that he told about being in space. And that we were just like, man, that is such a great thought, and how can we thread that a little bit through his story? But again, I think they were mostly shown to us. It was more, really this film, the subtext is like to listen, to like go into rooms without as much of a expectation. Like I need to go in and meet this person and get out. It's a little bit more, have patience, be in stillness when you can, and allow things to come to you. Because a lot of this film was real. It's your film. Like I think it's really you all. It was more us allowing things to arise and then taking enough time to piece them together.
Thank you so much for this great film. One of my surprises was I came in with this expectation of the hero artist, right, or the minister as the solo person, and instead it was this really authentic and vulnerable three families, and I just wanted to ask each of the families. Most of us just have like pictures of our families or maybe a short like video of singing happy birthday. And what was it like to see your family on screen? Was it surprising, insightful? I was just kind of wondering about that kind of very unique dynamic.
Mr. Riggs.
I love your train set. I want to go visit.
I guess I would say it's a little scary.
Yeah, vulnerable.
Because it's invulnerable, right? It's allowing others to look within our personal lives and trusting it'll be okay.
It reminded me something that I already know, which is how much I love my family. I loved seeing these memories of mine, like stories that I have held dear to my heart, then animated. and so that I can actually see them outside of my brain. And that was such a special gift. I mean, you guys give me so many gifts. It's very wild, but this was a definite highlight, like going back into my childhood in these moments, you know? So that was something that was very powerful for me. Thank you.
Yeah, so seeing the crew on the film was pretty cool. You know, like life seems to be in like these like compartments, at least for me anyways. And there seems to be like, sometimes it could be like an 8 or 10 or 12 year period of your life where everything feels kind of the same. And so it was like seeing that phase of our life, kind of like a snapshot of it, was really a really cool thing, I guess. So I've seen this now a few times myself, and every time I watch it, it's a tearjerker, you know, because you're just seeing that moment of your life kind of right there, and it's a good one, you know. So it's pretty cool, I guess. I mean, I'm sure of it. How cool it was a neat thing, because you know these kids, they grow up fast, so you know it's not going to be how they've grown up a lot just since we started filming that till right now. So it's a neat thing.
So Nellie mentioned animation, and I think we would be remiss if we did not talk about the beautiful animation that was in this film. And obviously, I realize you used it as a tool during COVID to tell certain stories, but talk a little bit about the process of like how much you use narration versus how much you film stuff, and like what was that process like? Because you could have done more animation, you could have done less.
Well, we just love animation, and I think that some people may think it is for children, but it's not. And I hope this film demonstrates that to you, that it can be funny and violent, and at the same time expose things that you can't do in camera. We can't send Tim to space right now. I mean, maybe Musk can, but I certainly don't have those funds. So it gave us this opportunity to play, and all 3 of these people were so game to play. Like we put Nellie up on a mountain with like her beautiful art hanging, and she was like, game. He's preaching in the woods, and then, you know, he's walking around Buchanan with a spacesuit on, and it was always it was never for art's sake. It was always under the premise that you have to study the story first, and that it must be from within these people. And so I think the animation tries to do that as well. You want to speak to it?
I think the only thing I'll add is animation allowed us to pronounce their personality, their style of being in some way. And I don't know that we always captured it perfectly, but we took a lot of inspiration and put a lot of thought into color palettes, style, and that's why each is different. You know, we wanted it to, again, you know, embolden your voices through a visual form that we don't always get to see in our everyday lives.
So the one prominent member of the film, Kaya, who's not here with us, just talk a little bit about how her role in the film came about, and kind of how, did you always plan for that narration, or was that something that came about as you were filming?
So Kaya Cater is an amazing artist, and if you haven't followed some of her music, please do, and support her by buying her albums. And I know that she is phenomenal and has concerts all over the world and tour and things like that, or at least in the United States. Jonathan met her when he was filming the Appalachian Ensemble at Davis and Elkins College. Kaya went to college there and studied folk music and Appalachian music, and she was just always so generous with her music, and we had licensed a song from her for another movie that we had worked on. And when we were trying to think about how to, again, when we had edited together those films and we knew that the structure, I had to prove that these people were pioneers, we needed that voice and that narration, we were trying to brainstorm on who should do that, who should read this, who has the power and the ability to command that kind of voice and go up against the Walt Whitmans and the Elon Musks of the world and say, we're here, we're pioneers. And we just knew she was right. And I think, how did we approach her? email her?
Yeah, I mean, that was essentially it. I mean, we had worked with Kaya a few times on commercial projects and Born in a Ballroom as well, and so we had a little bit of a relationship, but again, totally selfishly, we were like, she's super cool, love her music, like, wouldn't it be a dream if Kaya would be willing to do this? And yeah, we emailed and then got on a call, and what I want to say is that Kaya was a partner, really. Like, Clara wrote these words and spent a lot of time on that, but then we shared it with Kaya, and then she helped edit and ensure that even though these were written, it was her voice, or that she was comfortable performing them in a way that she could, you know, go out and say, yeah, I agree, or, you know, ultimately feel comfortable. So we really enjoyed that process of like writing with her and talking about even the inspiration for her Poets Be Buried song, and just making sure we wove her into this film in a way that was respectful and supportive, while, again, pronouncing the stories involved, you know.
Absolutely incredible film. So inspired. Thank you for creating it. I'm honestly wondering if you had any, before, I mean, when you were conceiving of the idea of using the Pioneer as the ship, kind of, to create this film, was there any other philosophies or things that went into that? You know, things like Dharma or self-actualization are coming into it, which are really meaningful for me. I feel like you guys really portrayed not only what like pioneers been in the past, but like bringing it forward to like internally bringing out what we have in us into the world, even in small, ordinary ways that everyone can do. And I feel really like energized by that. So I just wondered if you anything that went into you know, the idea in very early stages that like meshed any philosophies or ideas that like pronounced the Pioneer as the vehicle for the story. Yeah, thanks.
That's a great question. Thank you, Stephen. It was always Pioneer, and I think that there might be a few reasons for that. I think we ourselves had a romantic relationship with the word. And in Westford, it's either Pioneer Bank, Mountaineer Bank. You know, there's just this romanticism to it. I don't want to say obsession per se, but certainly an affinity to it culturally where we live. And so I would imagine that was at the base in some ways of how it arose. But then obviously reading Walt Whitman's poems and sort of focusing on that a little bit and deconstructing it allowed us to find that as the vehicle. And I think really what we struggled with was more about how much or how little. Because in some ways, is this like a historical film? Like, is this like literature? Should we go that route? And we kind of wanted to. We wanted, you know, we're like, oh man, let's like really investigate that and go that route. But ultimately, we did want it to be a vehicle, but for these people, and make sure the film was about them and their lived experience. Because again, the hope is that people connect with it in a way that's like, oh, you know, like, I do that. I can do that. Like, I can go talk to my neighbor and, you know, I saw she was doing this and that's really interesting, and championing really the little moments, you know. And so in some ways counteracting the general public's, let's say, discussions on pioneering. You know, it's the Elon Musks, it's the billionaires, it's amazing people that do amazing things that we need, you know, in the struggles that we have in the world. But, you know, going the opposite direction and finding a pioneering spirit in moments of stillness, in the way we respond. You know, actually, I'm going to say, you know, my father and my mother are here in the audience, and they inspire me greatly. And my father had a book, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, that he had lent to me. And I think that also inspired at least me in my response to Clara's idea. And Viktor Frankl experienced horrible things in his life during the Holocaust, but he was able to come out of it with this positivity in life. And he says, no matter what happens, you always have a choice in how you respond. Whatever power is taken from you, you have the power of response. And I felt that greatly in at least the inspirational side and beginnings of the film. I rambled a lot, but that was a great question. Thank you.
Yeah, that was incredible. I have like tons of notes that I've taken just because there was too much going on within 5 minutes. I mean, even the objects thing that you mentioned, I noticed that thread and I thought, what's going on? And for me personally, I've always kind of really valued the human connection and didn't even realize this thread that you all three shared with inanimate objects. And I was like, man, I need to rethink my life here for a minute. Like, what's going on, you know? Maybe I'm missing something big here. And the visuals and the audio were incredible in this theater. Incredible. I want to reiterate what Clara mentioned, if you don't mind, since it's the last one. Just what I've seen with the talent, throughout all these films, and the filmmaking and the characters and the audience itself, the professionalism of this event, incredible, very inspiring. So I think I have, a quadrillion-dollar question. And I did the math. Like, I'm pretty sure it's in the quadrillion range, maybe quintillion. So,
no pressure.
Yeah. So, as someone that's actually worked on technology and medical inventions and bringing them to market, maybe someone that I'm certainly no Elon Musk, but maybe would traditionally think of maybe be thought of in some other invention sort of world. Watching this, the inanimate objects, and then there's so many other things. I'm thinking to myself, my goodness, I feel inadequate. Like I really felt inadequate. Like you all of your characters were just unbelievable. And the quadrillion-dollar question I have is, are they really that incredible? Are they that much better than everyone else? Because right now I feel like they are, right? Or does everyone in this room have something like this? And do we just need Clara and Jonathan to write a story about all of us?
Is this a challenge? Are you going to challenge me?
Is that where the quadrillion come in?
Yeah. So now we're gonna reframe this and go around the country filming all of you and telling your stories. So I am of the philosophy that every single human has value, and I think that even Meg and Scott's film earlier, Scott and Meg did Impossible Town, and they touched on the importance of seeing the value of West Virginians, poor, rich, whomever, whatever you are, you have value, and so I think what we're trying to do here is demonstrate and inspire all of you and ourselves. I needed to hear this. We all needed to hear. We all have to remind ourselves of this, and so we're trying to inspire you to go out and do even the smallest thing that is in the spirit of the pioneer. That doesn't mean that we're not going to fail, and that doesn't mean that we're not going to give up sometimes and stuff like that, but I think it's meant to just inspire you and have hope and see your value.
Yeah, I guarantee if we took our camera and followed you around Ashok, it would be clear that you're a pioneer as well. I think that's the idea, and it isn't to make you feel like you're not enough. It's more to show if you were given the opportunity to have someone tell your story, even for a couple years, it would become evident, in the small choices and the big.
Well, I was really hoping that would be your answer, and I wanted that to be your answer because I want everyone here to hear that answer as well, right? And to go share that answer with everyone that we know, because this is incredible. I mean, to see this, and I can't express enough how inspired I am by all of you characters. And I just wanted to ask, who was doing the cover for that song when you all were in the grass? Whose voice was that? Who? It wasn't her actual voice. Her actual voice?
Yeah.
So
Eliza's voice? Are you serious?
Yeah.
So what do you think? Is there any way we can hear a piece of that?
Oh my God.
I have not formally recorded anything other than what was in that song, but sometimes I play an open mic at this guy's gallery.
Nice.
Okay.
Infamous Art Collective in Buchanan, West Virginia. Yeah, so the modesty continues in the family, as you can see. It's like they're all so darn humble and,
and so brilliant and
talented.
talented. It's insane.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, pioneering voice. I'd buy an album immediately. So thank you all.
Yeah, that moment gave us chills on set. I kid you not. I don't think I even did anything on that one because I just sat there with my mouth open and was like, okay, that was beautiful. It was really good.
Well, and I've said this a few times, so I'm sorry, Tim, but what I love about that scene more than anything as a father is seeing Tim come in like, hey, I'm going to play with you. I'm going to help you out. Let's do this together. And just losing it. You know what I mean? Like, I won't say you lost it, but like, just like, it's like, this is my daughter here, and he's not playing, by the middle, at first he was kind of starting, and then he's just like, I'm just going to sit here and get a front row seat to this because it's like amazing. I love that.
Congratulations to all of you. It was so cool to see it on the big screen. I was actually going to ask about the music because the score is so special and beautiful. So I'd love to hear more about how you collaborated with the composer, but also it seems like there were all these beautiful original songs. So did that come after, or did you kind of always know that you wanted to handle the music that way? I'm just so curious about the score in general.
Yeah, I'm going to let Jonathan speak to this a little more. I want to just shout out that Bowie's people we licensed and paid for that song, and it's beautiful and amazing. But they were kind and they were good to us, and all they asked was like, hey, they saw your scene, by the way. Let us see that scene and make sure we're okay with it. And they gave it the approval, like the 2 thumbs up, But we licensed a few tracks, and then we had our composer, Ho Ling Tang, compose the entire film, and she literally created themes for each of you. She was careful about instrumentation and the emotion and studied each of them and watched the film carefully, and then even selected instruments and friends of hers to play live instruments.
Yeah, what I loved about Ho Ling is she really brought herself to it, and then again brought with intention, the live instrumentation that we didn't ask for at first. She said, to make these stories feel organic and tangible, we want to use real instruments. But with Ho Ling, we worked together early. We had worked with Ho Ling a few times and knew we wanted her to be a big part of it. And then with the songs and covers. Music always plays a huge part in our films. Certainly in the edit, when I'm editing, I'm always pulling tracks that I love or that Clara finds, or even like the Polo and Pan song, Ani Kuni, that came from Paige Liu, who's an employee of ours at Coat of Arms. And she's like, oh man, I love the song. And she played it. And so we kind of held on to it. And throughout the year in our creative work, we're always grabbing things that inspire us, whether it's a picture, a painting, a song. And so when we have the opportunity to align musicality, and I'll just say, music pronounces everything. Like you're having a bad day, you put on a good song, it can change your day. And so it's a privilege as a non-musician really to be able to take music that others create and have that make my work, our stories become exponential. So all of those songs were things pulled during the edit ultimately, and yeah.
I want to speak to 2 things. First, the Ani Kuni song is a traditional Native American song, and that was intentional that we wanted that spirit to be represented in this film because of the pioneer past, right? The extraction, the murder of so many Native people. And so that song is a kind of a lullaby, or a song that is sang in primary schools now, but what used to be, I guess, sung by mothers to their children. And I don't know what the words mean. I would love to know, but I had tried to research it, and there were different translations. But it's very powerful. That's what was over the opening credits. The second thing I want to do is let our sweetheart here tell us about Home.
My dear friend Heather Hanna, who is a singer-songwriter, wrote the song Home that you all got to hear. And she wrote it after losing one of her homes to a fire. And it was when I was dealing with the grief of losing my childhood home, at that time, my dad's current home, I showed up the day after, December 26, 2020. Was the day I showed up. The fire was on December 25th, 2020. What a bookend to that year. I showed up with my guitar thinking, oh yes, I'll, sing to this home of mine. And the guitar was quickly replaced with a contract bag and a bucket. And that was really hard. One, because I think I had to disassociate a bit and put away my feelings, my emotions toward this tragedy, and really not understand or think that it was anything for me to personally grieve, because it wasn't my current home. But these sweet humans here asked me what I needed, and I was like, I don't need anything. What you talking about? I don't need anything. And then I thought about it a bit, and I was like, actually, me processing this grief and receiving some care from, and asking for care from my friends and community and family was not taking away anyone else's grief. So I asked my friend Heather to perform this song, Home, so that I could say goodbye and process. And that day of filming was one of the greatest, another great gift that these folks gave me. I started that day, it was freezing cold, and we walked in there and it was icy. And we filmed it over the course of that morning, and while the sun kind of soaked in, everything started to lift. The spirits all lifted, everything. My voice box actually kind of like opened up, and by the end, I could actually sing. I couldn't sing in the beginning. I don't know if you remember that, but I barely could talk. And so it was, and also at that time, they were about to bulldoze the house down, clear the lot, and my favorite flowers were starting to bloom, forsythia, the first flowers of spring that surround that house. And my dear friend Heather, I said, I really want some forsythia in here. And she goes, I got you. And then she goes outside and she starts breaking all the big branches down, just ripping them out, and fills the room with me in it. And I didn't have to do a damn thing. Thank you. Thank you so much. Sorry about all that ramble. Okay, I sign off.
Hi, thank you so much for everything you've put on screen. One through line throughout this whole festival, both narrative and documentary, has been industrial practices as this extractive thing. And what your film posits is that art, and all of your art and filmmaking as a whole, is regenerative, is restorative, communal. So what is your ethos of art being public, communal, restorative, regenerative, and that shies away from the extractive nature? How do you balance that? Thank you.
All right. Yeah, I love that question. Thank you. Yeah, I feel like creativity in general comes from a place we don't necessarily understand, right? As artists, regardless of your form, function, medium that you use, there's this fear in many artists of like, am I going to be able to write a new song tomorrow? Am I going to be able to put, brush to paper or, create something that I'm proud of and that speaks to people? And I think where I'm going with this is that I feel like the reason art tends to feel regenerative is it is this sometimes intangible element at its beginning, but as you faithfully work on it and spend time with it and listen to it, it blooms, into something magical. It's magic is really what it is, and that's why it feels so regenerative, I think. What I do want to say, because I want to hear from you all on this too, but I think that I agree with you, and I just want to say that it's our responsibility as patrons of the arts to support the arts, and that's what we're doing here. And I'm so grateful for you all being here late. Like, it's past our bedtime. We're like asleep in another universe right now, you know? So thank you for staying with us and supporting the arts, supporting each other, supporting this community, and continue to do that and tell your friends and family why this is important, because it is hope, it is love, it is regenerative. And man, I love that question. Thank you so much.
I'll just add one thing, and then I'm going to give it to James because I think it's going to be a bridge to him anyway. Jonathan's grandfather was a religious philosopher, a theologian, and he wrote a book about creativity and said that creativity is getting, and Pierre, you're going to have to correct me here, getting closer is like being like God. It's like, it's the most pure way that you can, because the creator is. And you don't have to be religious. When you are inspired, there's this zing that happens to you, and you can't explain it. It could be soul searching, or I don't know. And I'm going to let James speak to this a bit.
Amen, sister. Wow. I was just going to say, with my little pointy theological head, that all of our faith traditions in the world, they're based on a creator and what you're just talking about. And I think to answer the gentleman's question about the ethos, because he said extraction, if I heard it correctly, I think the difficulty is that as a culture, we follow the creation piece of all of our faith traditions, but we've forgotten the stewardship piece of what we've created. Thus, we have extraction in the sermon.
I feel like I've said so much. I love that you took this on as, because of the whole pioneer thing and all the extraction, like you said, like, and all of the talk around West Virginia, at least since I've been growing up, has been a lot on resources leaving this state and not benefiting necessarily the folks that live here, nor the land that we stored. And I think that when it comes to creativity or art making, it comes from a place of abundance instead of this fear of not having enough. And I don't have totally all the right words, but I think that that's where it's not taking away from anything or extracting. And then I think that you've taught that to me too through this, that like just my grief and having it doesn't take away from anyone else's. And that abundance nature that we have. Oh, also the film showed that so beautifully, right? The state is so gorgeous. It's so gorgeous. Thank you.
I was a little confused about what the question was. I was thinking about extraction. I was like, well, I guess creativity is like an extraction, like kind of like extracting it from myself. And I was like, well, maybe that's not. Then you start talking about resources. I was like, well, maybe that's what they were meaning. So, no, I mean, like, I like to work with a lot of junk. I mean, you can see that in the documentary. So, do think a lot about like making more of a mess out of the art than, you know what I mean, by where the resources come from. So it's easy to just get into a pile of junk and stick it all together with the welds and the bolts and stuff or whatever. But think it is important to be responsible about how you're coming up with the art. It's funny that we'd have this conversation because I was watching a bunch of like snippets on Burning Man, and one of the things that one of the artists brought up an interesting point. He said, I think it was interesting that we're making this virtual forest out of trees that were cut down. But they did actually take, in that particular case, they took the wood and found other uses for it after the festival was over. But yeah, I don't know. If we're talking about like trying to be responsible with how we make art and things like that, I mean, I like to think that a lot of the artists that I know are trying to do things like that. But not everybody is. So I don't know. I guess we should be thinking a lot more about that, probably.
One thing I want to say just about the Hibbs family in general, and Sasha's not up here, she's in the audience. I want to just call her out. I don't know where she is. There she is. So Sasha, as you could see, is like, she's kind of like the glue in the film, you know? Like, we have our three main participants in the film that we're weaving, and when Sasha comes on screen, you're either like smiling or laughing or crying. You know, like there's a heart that she brings to this film, and I just want to call that out. And in addition to that, when you visit with the Hibbs family, I mean, they're so damn talented. You know, there's just like creativity just oozes, you know, out of their fiber and every part of their being, you know. And so it's like a warm hug when you're with them. And so I just want to say that in, you know, response to the question as well, because that is such a wonderful example of how when you're around people who are willing to give the beauty in themselves, that gift allows you to then pass it on, you know, whether it is through a story or through your art or with the people that you're around. So I just appreciate how open you all were with allowing us to be in your world, because it was awesome.
Well, this is a good transition point. So first of all, I want to say thank you to each and every one of you for joining me up here and talking to everybody, and again, bearing your souls for all of us. But I think that point of extraction and about art and creation really hit me for the festival. And like, this is not possible without everybody up here, everybody out there. So thank you so much. We put a lot of work into this festival, and to see it happen and to see this many people. I mean, I've been in North Central West Virginia for 14 years. We're in downtown Clarksburg at a film festival, and this theater had over 600 people come through it. And so, I mean, just amazing. So thank you so much. And again, it's not possible without you all. So I just want you to understand that we appreciate it so much. So thank you, and we'll see you next year, definitely. Have a good evening.